All right, so welcome to our second video. Real quick, off the top of my head, if you have not watched the first video, stop right now. Go back, watch the first video. I know these might be a little bit long. I know you might not want to do it, but I promise this will help you. This will make you not just have an amazing mixer in your ears, but I promise you it will actually make you a better musician in the end. It'll make you a better singer. It'll make you a better player. I promise. Okay, so let's talk about a couple more functions on the Aviom, and then I'm going to give you my philosophy of mixing, and then I'm going to tell you my secrets to getting a really, really great mix. You don't want to miss it out. Okay, so the first thing is the solo button. It's pretty obvious what it does. You just click any channel on the Aviom, and you hit solo, and then once you hit solo, you'll only hear that instrument. Let's try it out. Let's try it out with something else. So I'm going to hit unsolo now to unsolo it. And you know what? I'm going to solo the drums. Okay, so the mute button. So basically what the mute button does is kind of opposite with the solo. If the solo makes you only listen to one instrument, the mute just mutes one instrument, but you still hear everything else. Now here's why this is really important in a mix. I bet that I can mute two instruments in this bad mix. Yes, two, and watch how the mix gets like 25 to 30% better just by muting what I think are the problems, because I'm trying to diagnose what the problems are and move forward with that. So let's go ahead and play the bad mix. I'm gonna mute some things, and you'll hear immediately what where I would start with the problems. You know, it's like it's almost laughable. Like, listen, I'm gonna unmute those and I'll show you. There's just a lot of information happening, and watch what happens when I mute them. Okay, now I don't want you to look at that and be like, well, there it is. That's the secret. I just got to mute the acoustic guitar and the keyboard every single time, and it's going to be amazing. Again, that's not what I was trying to show you. What I was trying to show you was that I found a problem by listening. I listened for a couple seconds, and I knew exactly what the problem was. And I decided to make sure by muting them, or I could have soloed them and say, yeah, no, that is the problem. And then I could make my moves to be decided to like kind of base off that. Now that brings me to like kind of like the last part of this video, which is really, really important. A lot of you come in and you think that mixing on the Aviom is a puzzle, and that this puzzle has pieces that change every single week. Now that's a really tough puzzle to put together, because imagine if you had a puzzle where every single time you knew what it looked like, but the pieces change every week. So don't think of it as a puzzle. Instead, think of it as a map. And you know the destination. You know what good sound is. You listen to it all the time. You listen to albums that are professionally recorded, mixed, mastered, put out there on Spotify, put out there on Apple Music. All those things are really, really dialed in. So you know what professional things should sound like. You just don't know how to get there. And the problem is, I think really for most individuals, is that the key, you know, the things that like tell you the markings on the map, or like the landmarks or whatever, all those things you've been using a wrong key on your map. And so then every time you come here, you go, okay, I know I'm going to make this sound good. And you tried all these things, you try to get it to do the thing you really, really want to do. But then at the end, you're like, man, this is not the destination that I thought I was going to get to. I know the destination I want to get to, and I'm not there. How do I get there? Well, here's the first problem. The first problem is you're using the wrong definitions, which also leads to the 5 secrets to get you a good mix. So let's go back to the first problem. What the first problem is? The first problem is your mix is not muddy. What I mean by that is your mix has problems, but muddy, it's not a musical term. It's not a good way to look at your map and say, this sounds muddy, how do I get it better? muddy doesn't really mean anything in the musical term. Instead, there are better definitions that you can use to, get you to where you want to be. So I would say that's probably the first thing that I want to kind of reiterate to everybody is use the right terms. And I'm going to tell you the 5 secret terms to get you to a good mix, and then I'll show you how I can get you there. But don't use words like muddy, and really don't use anything other than these 5 definitions, at least to start. Maybe later on, once you understand like a little bit further what people are really trying to say, maybe then you can try that. But for now, don't use words like muddy. Don't use words like muffled. Don't use words like cloudy. Don't use words like, I don't know, insert whatever word you think that isn't one of the next 5 definitions I'll give you. So what are these 5 definitions? Super simple. Too loud, too quiet, too much low end, too much high end, too dry. Now let me break that down for you. If something is too loud, you probably just need to turn it down from the individual volume. If something is too quiet, you probably just need to turn it up from the individual volume. If something is too much low end, you can adjust that with the individual EQ. And if something has too much high end, you can also adjust that with the individual EQ. And if something is too dry, you can adjust that with the reverb. Now, I won't go too in depth about how I'm going to do all that right now in this video. I just want you guys to understand that concept, because I really believe that if you guys move away from terms like too muddy or too, honestly, muddy is the one I hear the most, but terms that they're providing more of an obstacle for yourself. If you just remove that obstacle from yourself and instead look at this as a map and use the right key, the key that I just gave you, too loud, too quiet, too much low end, too much high end, too dry. If you use those 5 definitions and listen to something and say, okay, is this too loud? Is this too quiet? Does this have too much low end? Does it have too much high end? Is it too dry? If you do those things, I promise you, very, very quickly, you'll be able to hear problems very quick and just fix them using this. And you'll kind of be a wizard in this thing. And I believe that everybody can do it. It's super easy. It's almost like riding a bike. Like once you really get that feeling of like, oh wow, like I could just do this, you'll never forget it. I promise it'll always just be in there, and it'll probably be hard for you to make a bad mix. So I'm going to end this video here, and we'll jump in really, really in depth for the next one.